Hmm. Hello, students. In the last session, we had seen that Nelson Mandela, in his autobiography, Long Walk to Freedom, had shared his optimistic ideology that no child is born hating the other on the basis of the color of the skin or his background or his religion. The society or the system or some other people will teach him how to hate others. Otherwise, nobody starts hating since birth. It is not a natural inclination, it is not a natural tendency. These are the prejudices that he acquires later because of society or family or the system. People must learn to hate, and if they can learn to hate, they can be taught to love. We have seen in this world that people are made to hate, they have been taught hatred. So if somebody can be taught hatred, he can also be taught how to love. So here this is the optimistic ideology that he wants to teach them love. They can be taught to love, for love comes more naturally to the human heart than its opposite. And love is a more natural feeling, a more spontaneous feeling which comes from a human being than hatred. Now they can taught, even in the grimmest times in prison, when my comrades and I were pushed to our limits, I would see a glimmer of humanity in one of the guards. Now you can see, as we say, that beauty lies in the eyes of beholder. Similarly, if you are optimistic, you can find a ray of hope anywhere. Even when these white people were torturing Nelson Mandela, as well as his other comrades, his other fellow members, then in the grimmest of times, grimmest means in the most gloomy and the most uh, despairful moments of his life in prison, when I would see a glimmer of humanity in one of the guards, the white guards who were torturing them, oppressing them. He could even see a glimpse of or a ray of hope or a humanity in them, even for a short period of time, even for a moment of two. But he realized that goodness is still present in them, and that was enough to raise his spirits. Perhaps just for a second, it could just be for a second, but it was enough to reassure me and keep me going. So there in the prison, you know that he had been in the prison for 27 long years, and this kind of ray of hope, this optimism kept him alive and going. Man's goodness is a flame that can be hidden, but it can never be extinguished. A flame that will always keep on illuminating and shining. It could never be extinguished. It can be dimmed by other evil forces, but it can never be extinguished. This is essential human goodness. We are born with this goodness, and it will always be retained in us. And this is the optimistic view of Nelson Mandela. Now let us see some other views of Nelson Mandela, what he shares in his autobiography. Now, Nelson Mandela is discussing about some other aspect. This is about our duties, our commitments, and our promises that we make to humanity or our community. In life, every man has twin obligations. According to Nelson Mandela, every human being who lives has two kind of responsibilities or duties or commitments that he has to fulfill: obligations to his family, to his parents, to his wife and children, and he has an obligation to his people. There are two different kind of obligations. One obligation you can consider towards his family, his parents, his wife, his family, his son or his daughter, etc. So altogether he has this obligation, his duty to take care of them, to earn for them and fulfill all their needs and fulfill the responsibilities. But on the other hand, we have a higher responsibility that we should be aware of, and we should do it. He has an obligation to his people. This obligation is towards our nation, towards our people, towards our community, towards our society. Living in a selfish environment, just thinking about our family, our needs, and fulfilling them through the entire life is selfishness. You are not able to come out of the materialistic world and the world of temptation, and you have not attained a compassion and empathetic attitude towards everybody. But gradually a person realizes, and when he observes, when he realizes, he senses that his family is not the only responsibility he owns, but there is a higher responsibility he has. It is not that always you will keep on taking and taking and taking, but in your life you should always be giving back that you have taken, and that is serving the mankind, serving the community. So this is the second responsibility that he is talking about, that this is the duty towards our people that we should do. So both the responsibilities normally can be done one along the other in the normal circumstances. But African circumstances were not normal, they were abnormal, because there was apartheid and other forms of discriminations, so they could not fulfill both the responsibilities at the same time. What he is telling us is that his community, his country, and his people, he wanted to serve them also, but in a civil and humane, in a civilized and humane environment, in a good environment, in a good society. Each man is able to fulfill those obligations. If we try to decide to do it in India right now, we can do it. We can look after our family, we can earn for them, provide them all the things that are required, and at the same time, we can do service towards humanity, towards or social service, we can say, service towards our community, towards our nation, and even, why not, you can do something for the whole world. So we can do it. But so each man is able to fulfill these duties according to his own inclinations. Inclinations are the natural bent of mind, your natural behaviors and abilities. Now, each person is not compassionate and empathetic enough to think about the entire community. They may be living a selfish life only. Once you live all the attractions and temptations of your life, and you move towards your community, you become selfless. So everybody cannot do it. It requires some natural bent of mind. It also depends upon your upbringing, your behavior, how compassionate you are, how understanding, how sensitive you are towards the problems and pain of other people. So if you have this natural inclination, you can do to the best of your ability. But in a country like South Africa, it was almost impossible for a man of my birth and color to fulfill both of these obligations. But there he could not fulfill both these obligations together, because he was a colored person. He was a black, and the white supremacy did not allow him to fulfill both the needs. Even one was not fulfilled to the complete extent that we normally consider. So he was not able to perform both his responsibilities. So he's talking about the scenario which was prevalent in South Africa. In South Africa, a man of color means blacks, as well as the other colored people, the Indians and the others who came there, who attempted to live as a human being, was punished and isolated. If we asked for our basic fundamental rights to live We were not granted them, and on the contrary, we were punished and we were isolated from the society, that we are demanding something that was undue. So we were isolated, we were arrested, and in this way, when we were arrested, we could not fulfill even one of our obligations, that is towards our family. So here in South Africa, if you want to do something for the people, for the community, if you want to stand against dis- discrimination and injustice, you will be arrested by the generals, by the police, by the government, and you will be arrested and you will be put to jail, and you will be declared as a rebellion, and you will not be allowed to even take care about your family. In South Africa, a man of color who attempted to live as a human being was punished and isolated. In South Africa, a man who tried to fulfill his duty to his people was inevitably ripped from his family and his home, and was forced to live a life apart, a twilight existence of secrecy and rebellion. So he was declared. Suppose he wanted to do something for his people, then inevitably, unavoidably, without any avoidance, it was always that he would be put behind the bars and he would be ripped. That his living with the family would also be snatched away. His right to live with the family would also be taken away, and he would be homeless, and he would be either in the prison or he would be roaming about in secrecy, away from the police and the administration, and he would be living a life of rebellion. He will be declared a rebellion. He is a criminal against law. I did not in the beginning choose to place my people above my family. Now Nelson Mandela is telling us about his feelings, that how naturally the feelings, the realization grow in a human being. It is not that from the day one he was great enough, he was not born great, that from the first day itself he wanted to do something for the society. But he is saying that earlier I did not in the beginning place my people. So my people were not placed above my family. At first, my thoughts were also like the ordinary people, that I want to take care of my family, I want to earn for them, I want to marry, I want to have a family, and I want to live my normal life. I should get a proper job, and I should be able to get all the opportunities that are required, that are important for your development. So this was the only wish that he had earlier. He did not earlier thought about the people, the African community, the injustice and the discrimination. But in attempting to serve my people, I found that I was prevented from fulfilling my obligations as a son, a brother, a father, and a husband. But as soon as I want to do something for my people, I am declared a rebel, a criminal, I am put behind the bars, and I would not even be allowed to perform my duties as a son also. So my family responsibilities also I would not be allowed to do. So this was the scenario in Africa, where you cannot live free, you cannot ask for your rights, and you are always discriminated, and you cannot ever dare to work for the community or stand against injustice and discrimination. I was not born with a hunger to be free. Now he is telling about gradually how he observed everything, and how the fire or the thirst of freedom ignited or began inside him. I was not born with a hunger to be free. So I was no earlier when I was small, I had no idea. I thought that I was just free. So there was no hunger to be free. I felt that everything is normal. I was born free. I thought that I was born free. What are the different things that I was getting that I thought that I was free? Let us see. When he was young, he was free in every way that I could know. You know that freedom also has many aspects and many domains. It depends upon what age you are. The freedom and your requirements, your wishes, your desires changes according to them. Though essential freedom, the definition of freedom is just the same, but still in this materialistic world, in this practical world, at different stages of our life, our freedoms are different. When we are small, we are allowed to go to play, that is our freedom. We are allowed to get our chocolate, that is okay. Now when you are growing up, you require freedom, so you want to go to your desired friend's house, or you get a mobile, you get whatever amount of pocket money you are getting, and that is freedom. When you'll go to the college, your mobile, your laptop, your good college, and everything you want, all the facilities and the opportunities of development would be freedom for you. So freedom and the requirements, the concepts keep on changing with age. So let us see when he's free, when he's very small, what is freedom for him? He thought he was free. Why? Free to run in the fields near my mother's hut, because I was not stopped by anybody. I was allowed to run in the fields near my mother's hut. Nobody stopped me. Nobody curtailed my freedom at that moment, that I can't go here and I can't go there. So he thought that he was free. He ran through the village and he was free to swim in the clear stream. So here he is allowed to use the stream freely. No one was there to stop him from swimming. And so he thought that he was a free man, free to roast mealies under the stars. Mealies are corn. So he was allowed to roast the corn and under the stars at night and eat it. So he thought that it was my freedom. And ride the broad backs of slow moving bulls. And in this village, where he spent his childhood, he was allowed to sit on these bulls, the broad back of the bulls, and he kept on. Yes, these bulls are moving slowly, and he was allowed to sit on them. So nobody stopped him from doing this, and that is why he thought that he was completely free as long as I obeyed my father and abided by the customs of my tribe. You know that in Africa there were and there are many tribes. So he also belonged to a particular tribe, and you know that the head of your family is your father normally, according to the traditional belief. And until and unless he followed his father's instructions and the rules of his or the customs of his tribe, everything was all right. And nobody stopped him, nobody scolded him. So he thought that he was completely free. I was not troubled by the laws of man or God. Now there was only father and the customs of the tribe that came into play. So there was no law, no duties, no responsibilities, no rules and regulations of the constitution, nothing like that that directly fell on him or he realized that, or no rules of the God also. So for him, everything was fine and he was completely free. It was only when I began to learn that my boyhood freedom was an illusion. But, as you grow up, you begin to realize, you begin to observe things. And as you start observing, as you start understanding, you realize that earlier things which you were ignoring, or earlier things which you were ignorant about, now they are completely different. The reality is completely different from what you felt. It was your freedom was an illusion, was actually an illusion for you. So that my boyhood freedom was an illusion. When I discovered as a young man that my freedom had already been taken from me, now all the rules and regulations of the land are being imposed on him. And as soon as this was done, he realized that he was living in an illusion. He had no freedom. when I discovered as a young man that my freedom, before he could realize his freedom, all the freedom that he wanted and craved for have already been taken from him. He is ripped off from his basic, fundamental, uh, what we can say, rights, that I began to hunger for it. And as soon as I realized I don't have the basic freedom, I started craving for it. The hunger for freedom began or aroused inside me. At first, as a student, I wanted freedom only for myself. Now he is telling us that when he is just a student, he wanted freedom only for himself. You are self centered. You don't think about your family or your society or your neighborhood, your community or your country, nobody else. You are getting everything, and that is fine. So, at first, as a student, I wanted freedom only for myself. The transitory freedom. The transitory means the short lived freedoms of being able to stay out at night. So, at when you are young or when you're going to college, if you're allowed to go out and party with your friends, you are all right. You are happy with it. So, able to stay out at night, read what I pleased, and when he was allowed to read whatever book he liked and go wherever he chose, he thought that he got freedom. So this was the freedom that he wanted. But later, the concept of freedom changed. As a student, going out at night, reading, and going anywhere you want is freedom for him. Later, the concept changes. Later, as a young man in Johannesburg, one of the important cities of South Africa, I yearned for the basic and honorable freedoms of achieving my potential. Here, he had a strong desire for the basic and honorable freedoms of achieving his potential. Now, when you are doing your job, you want all the opportunities to come your way, and you should be getting due credit of your potential or your capabilities. This is what you want. So honorable freedoms of achieving my potential, I should be able to achieve. I should be getting all opportunities, all resources, that whatever I am capable of, I should be able to do, of earning my keep, and I should be able to earn properly for my family, and whatever work I am doing, my salary should also, or my income should also be in the same ratio, so that he could keep pace with his earnings, and he could keep the ends meet, especially for his family. Of marrying, he also wanted as a young man that he should be allowed to marry, and there should be no hindrance in it, and having a family also, having a wife, having children, and the freedom not to be obstructed in a lawful life, and the freedom, the basic amenities which in any place where law and order exists should be available to me also. This was the only desire he had when he was a young man. But as he is growing up, but then I slowly saw that not only was I not free, but my brothers and sisters were also not free. Now, once he is, earlier he was just thinking about himself. Now he is matured enough to see the others, to observe others, to understand the scenario. And he saw that he is also not free, and all the others, his brothers and sisters, means all the other fellow black men, were also not free. The whole community was under discrimination and injustice. I saw that it was not just my freedom that was curtailed, not only me that whose freedom was reduced, but the freedom of everyone who looked like I did. That means this curtailing of the freedom is on the basis of the color of the skin. It is on the basis of race. So it was racism that was being practiced, and that is why our freedom was curtailed. That is when I joined the African National Congress. And after realizing this, that it's not only me but my whole community, that to work for my community, I joined a political party. And which is this political party? African National Congress. And that is when the hunger for my own freedom became the greater hunger for the freedom of my people. And this is the point where he realized that it is not only his own freedom that is important, but the freedom of the community is much more important than his own freedom. It was this desire for the freedom of my people to live their lives with dignity and self respect. With dignity is that you should be worthy of being respected and honored. After all, you are also a human being. You are also born on this land and you are a part of the same system. So you should also be worthy enough to be respected. So, this desire for the freedom of my people and dignity of life and self respect that animated my life, that gave way to my life, that gave me the right vision, the right aim, and the right objective. And then I envisioned that what I have to do. He realized what he has to move forward, on which path he has to move forward, and what is his aim in life. That transformed a frightening young man into a bold one. And once this was realized, that I myself not important, but the whole society and all the people are important, as soon as this realization happened, then from a frightening man, I became a bold man. From a frightening man, because when you are have attachments with your family, with your job, with your money, your salary, power, position, name, fame, anything, all these are temptations. So you always fear that I will not achieve this, I will lose this, I will lose that. This is a vicious circle we are all trapped in. So he was also caught in this circle, but as soon as from a selfish man, he became a selfless man, thinking about the humanities, thinking about the whole community. From a frightened man, he became a bold man. When you yourself leave everything, your family and everybody, and your name, fame, everything, you just leave everything, there is no fear left, and you become a bold man, bold enough to face and stand again or against all the odds, against all the discrimination in the world. That drove a law abiding attorney to become a criminal. And I was turned from a law abiding lawyer into a criminal, just because I fought for for the blacks or against the white supremacy. Though he was right, but it was a supremacy of the whites, and anything doing for the blacks made him an accused, and he was a criminal. That turned a family loving husband. He was also once a very normal, ordinary, family loving husband who took care or took pleasure in the pleasures of his family. But from this man, he turned into a man without a home, that forced a life-loving man to live like a monk. So earlier he was a family-loving man and he lived in a home, but later on started living the life of a monk. All the life all the life loving man, he loved life. He was a very lively person who enjoyed all the materialistic pleasures in life. From that he became a detached person, a homeless person, and he was like a monk. He was no more attached with anything but the good of humanity. I am no more virtuous or self sacrificing than the next man. Now he is saying that he is also having similar virtues or values or standards, moral standards and self-sacrificing than the next man. I was also like an ordinary man. I didn't have great moral values and standards, but I found that I could not even enjoy the poor and limited freedoms I was allowed when I knew my people were not free. And he's saying that when I stopped enjoying my freedoms because others were not enjoying them, I realized that I have to give up these also, and I have to fight for the freedom of the whole community. So it was at this point when he empathized with the other people, sympathized with the other people, started working for the other people, became sensitive enough for the other people and understanding enough. Then he realized that I just cannot enjoy my own limited freedoms, but I have to work for the greater freedom, for everyone's freedom and equal freedom for everybody. Freedom, he is also telling us something, that freedom is indivisible. It cannot be divided. It cannot be that you take this kind of freedom and the other take this kind of freedom, and somehow we can divide the freedoms and take up each one's share and enjoy our life. The chains on any one of my people were the chains on all of them. If freedom of any one part or group of people in the country has been curtailed or taken away, then it means that everybody's freedom is taken away, because we are not alone. We are a part of the whole. We are also one important member of the whole society. So he said that freedom given to one is meaningless. It should be given to everybody, and it should be equal. So my people were chained, any one of my people were the chains on all of them. We are all under the shackles of bondage, if any one or some or few of them are under this bondage. The chains on all of my people were the chains on me. And if my people are suffering, they are being exploited, they are being oppressed, they are being discriminated, and they are suffering injustice, then I cannot enjoy that freedom anymore. Now, this is a very important um, paragraph, and you should be able to understand this. Okay. So he is saying that I was the fire which ignited in him, that changed the author completely as a man, from being scared to a person being brave, a law abiding lawyer to the one breaking law, a family man to a man without a home, and a lively man into being monk. It was the knowledge that he and his people have restricted freedom that made him such a person that he started opposing, and he became a selfless man. Now he knew that freedom is indivisible. Snatching away the freedom of one part means snatching away from the whole. So he is now a very conscious, alive man working for humanity. Let us see another very important aspect that he has discussed in the last paragraph. What is he saying here? I knew all the oppressor must be liberated just as surely as the oppressed. Now, here remember two things. The oppressor are the whites who are oppressing the blacks, and the oppressed are the blacks who are suffering torture, discrimination, injustice. So, they are the oppressed. Now remember, I knew that the oppressor must be liberated just as surely as the oppressed. Now, in the earlier paragraph, we had seen that he had seen a vision, and there was a goal that he would work for the liberation, for the freedom of the black people. But here he realizes something else also. He says that not only liberating the oppressed or the black people is important, but I also have to bring out the oppressor from its prison. And what is this? I want to liberate both the people, the white also and the black also. because both the oppressor and the oppressed are under a bondage. The bondage is of different kind, but still they are under bondage. What is it? A man who takes away another man's freedom is a prisoner of hatred. Suppose the terrorists are attacking us, they are shelling bombs on us. So they are also prisoners. They are prisoners of hatred. Hatred has completely engulfed these people. Their mind is ravished by hatred. So they are also a prisoner of hatred. He is locked behind the bars of prejudice. Prejudice is a strong dislike without any good reason. They don't know why they are hating each other. The society, their family, or the system, or any government, or any political party, because of their selfish motives, may have guided them in that way. So they are living in a prison of hatred, and they are locked behind the bars of prejudice and narrow mindedness. They cannot have the holistic view. Their mind is narrowed by these kind of thoughts, that and their vision is shadowed. They cannot see the real truth. So he wants to bring them also out, to set them free from the prison of hatred. I'm not truly free if I'm taking away someone else's freedom. Can you call yourself as a free man if you are snatching away, robbing away, and curtailing any other person's freedom? Can you be strong enough and call yourself a free man? You cannot. You cannot, because your mind is still captured. Your physical body may be seen free, but your mind is captured. Just as surely as I am not free when my freedom is taken from me. Now comes the oppressed. Oppressed are obviously here, uh, uh, living under oppression. Their freedom is already being taken away, so I have to work for them also, obviously, because there there is encroachment on their fundamental rights of freedom, of equality, so I have to work for them. But I will always also work for the oppressor also. I will make them realize. And then you have seen in this in Africa, that both the blacks and the whites have made a common government, and they are all living in peace and harmony with each other. The oppressed and the oppressor alike are robbed of their humanity. Both of them are robbed of their humanity. If you hate somebody and torture somebody and exploit somebody, you are inhumane. So you don't have humanity. And the other person, the oppressed, he has been robbed of freedom. He is not allowed to do something. So he is again robbed of his humanity, his rights as a human being. So Nelson Mandela, in this last part, which has been taken from his autobiography, has discussed the concept of oppressor and oppressed, and he says that he would be working for both of them, the liberation of both the oppressor and the oppressed. Now, you know that it is bounded by both. The oppressor is bonded. We have already seen in the last paragraph that the oppressor is bonded in the or under the bondage or the shackles of hatred, and this hatred or this curse of all these families are falling upon him. So he decides to liberate all these people. We come to the end of the chapter, and I think that you would be able to understand this chapter. You should revise this chapter if you want to understand it completely and nicely.